In the northern reaches of our world, there's a place of ice, minerals, and military significance. Greenland, a land of few people, but infinite possibilities. Imagine for a moment, what if the U.S., the most powerful nation on earth, set its sights on this vast, sparsely populated island, not just as an ally, but as a part of its own domain? This isn't the plot of a geopolitical thriller. It's the reality of today. President Donald Trump and his team are actively discussing the purchase of Greenland, a Danish territory strategically located between North America and the Arctic. But why? Why does this icy island matter so much? Why is this seemingly bizarre idea now being actively pursued again, even after being rejected years ago? The answer lies in understanding the deeper layers of this situation, the historical context, the stakes, and the broader implications that have brought us to this critical juncture. Before we dive deeper, ask yourself, what would it mean for the U.S. to own Greenland? How would that shape the world we live in? Let's explore. So let's make it clear. This is not just about real estate. It's about power, resources, and the future of global security. The Trump administration has made it clear Greenland is vital to U.S. interests. But why is that the case? For years, Greenland has played a pivotal role in the defense strategies of the United States. Its location between North America and the Arctic makes it one of the most strategic territories in the world. Think about it. The Arctic is becoming a new frontier of global competition. In a world increasingly dominated by Russian and Chinese expansion, control of this region is more important than ever. But this isn't a new idea. It's been in the works for decades. To understand the full weight of this proposal, we need to look at the history and context that have led us here. What's at stake here goes beyond a simple transaction. It's about the balance of power in the Arctic and the world. Let's dive into the history of this geopolitical chessboard. To understand the urgency behind this proposal, we must first go back in history. Greenland's role has been critical for decades. During World War II, the U.S. established a military base on Greenland Thule Air Base, marking the beginning of its military importance. Since then, this remote island has served as a key outpost for the U.S. military. The strategic value was clear. Fast forward to the Cold War. Greenland was once seen as the front line against Soviet expansion in the Arctic. Today, in the face of renewed threats from Russia and China, that role has only grown. And it's not just about military defense. Greenland holds a unique position in the Arctic, a region that's becoming increasingly important in global geopolitics. But history isn't just about military strategy. There are deeper forces at play that go beyond just security forces that will continue to shape this story. Before we go further, consider this. What happens when security needs intersect with economic interests? How does this change the way we view global conflicts? Let's explore this in more detail. As tensions rise, the situation takes a sharp turn. In August 2019, President Trump made a bold move. He proposed the idea of buying Greenland. This wasn't a passing comment, it was a serious proposal. And Denmark's response? A firm no. Greenland, they said, was not for sale. But Trump's team didn't back down. Instead, they doubled down, making it clear that all options were still on the table. The suggestion that military force could be used to acquire Greenland raised eyebrows around the world. Why would the U.S. even consider such drastic measures? The answer lies in the growing strategic and economic importance of Greenland. The island's resources, rare earth minerals, uranium, even oil, could be game changers in the global race for power. But this crisis isn't just about a transaction or resources. It's about something much deeper, the changing landscape of international relations. What would the world look like if military force became part of the equation for acquiring territory? What are the risks, and who ultimately decides what's for sale? Let's take a closer look at what's really at play. Behind every political move, there's a hidden mechanism, a set of driving forces that shape decisions in ways we don't always see. In the case of Greenland, The mechanism is more than just national interest. It's about global dominance. The U.S. views Greenland not just as a piece of land, but as a strategic asset in a broader geopolitical game. Its location makes it invaluable, especially as the Arctic becomes a battleground for control. But it's not just about military importance. Greenland's resources are becoming increasingly valuable. As the ice melts due to climate change, previously inaccessible minerals, including rare earths and uranium, are now easier to extract. These resources are vital for modern technologies, from electronics to clean energy. The Trump administration sees an opportunity. By acquiring Greenland, the U.S. would secure its influence in the Arctic. But the question remains, what is the cost of this power play? And what does it mean for global alliances? This geopolitical game isn't slowing down. The stakes are about to get even higher as we move closer to understanding the broader impacts. Can we really put a price on strategic assets like these? How far would nations go to secure their future? Let's uncover the next chapter of this unfolding drama. As the world watches, another spark is lit in this already volatile situation. In recent months, the U.S. administration has once again signaled its intentions, with President Trump and his team pushing harder for Greenland. But this time, the rhetoric is more intense. The U.S. isn't just talking about a purchase anymore. They're discussing more drastic measures, including military action, to secure the island. The world reacts in shock. Leaders from across Europe, including France, Germany, and the UK, quickly express their opposition. They rally behind Denmark's sovereignty, making it clear that any threat to Greenland is a threat to NATO itself. This isn't just a territorial dispute anymore. It's a clash of alliances, a test of global power dynamics. The US sees the Arctic as a new frontier for its national security, one that cannot be left to rival powers like Russia or China. But how far will they go to secure it? What happens when military power, economic interest, and national security collide? The consequences of these moves go far beyond politics. They will have a direct impact on the lives of ordinary people, people who are caught in the middle of this great power struggle. What would you do if your homeland became the center of such a global conflict? What if your future was dictated by the decisions of powerful nations? Let's look at how this conflict is affecting the people of Greenland. While governments clash over control of Greenland, the real question is, how does this affect the people who live there? Greenland is a land of harsh conditions, small communities, and an indigenous Inuit population that has lived there for centuries. For them, this isn't just a political issue, it's a question of identity, sovereignty, and survival. Aja Chemnitz, one of Greenland's representatives in the Danish parliament, calls it a clear threat. For the people of Greenland, the idea of being passed between global powers feels like yet another form of colonization. It would be switching from one master to another, says Inuit hunter Alikat Siakpiri. His frustration is palpable. We are already losing a lot from being under the Danish government. And it's not just political. The effects of climate change are devastating their way of life. The sea ice that hunters rely on is melting, making it harder to survive. In a place already struggling with the impacts of global warming, the idea of becoming another pawn in a geopolitical game feels like a bitter betrayal. But this is not just a local issue, it has global repercussions. The tension in Greenland is a reflection of shifting power dynamics across the world. What if your future was shaped by forces beyond your control? How would you feel if your homeland was at the mercy of political and economic interests? Let's see how this plays out on the global stage. The eyes of the world are on Greenland, and the stakes couldn't be higher. What happens in this remote territory echoes across the globe. Denmark, a NATO ally, has made it clear that Greenland's sovereignty is non-negotiable. But the US sees the Arctic differently, a critical region for national security. As the Trump administration pushes for influence in the Arctic, it risks pushing international relations to the breaking point. The US is not alone in its interest. Russia and China are also making their moves, seeking to assert dominance in this resource-rich, strategically important region. The competition for power in the Arctic has already begun, with countries vying for control over the region's wealth of untapped resources. But it's not just about resources. This is a battle for global influence, with military and economic implications that could reshape the balance of power for decades to come. As tensions rise, we must ask, what happens if one nation, the U.S., emerges as the uncontested leader of the Arctic? The future of Greenland and the Arctic itself hangs in the balance. But what does that future look like? Will it be a shared world or one dominated by a few powerful nations? As the world watches this tense standoff unfold, what does the future hold for Greenland? There are three possible paths we could follow, each with its own consequences for global politics. Scenario 1. The best case, Greenland remains a self-governing territory, continuing its relationship with Denmark. The U.S. and other world powers respect its sovereignty, working together through diplomacy to address shared concerns about security and climate change. The Arctic becomes a space for international cooperation, with countries setting aside national interests for the collective good. This scenario preserves peace and fosters collaboration in the face of global challenges. Scenario 2. The middle ground. Greenland enters into a deeper partnership with the U.S., perhaps as a strategic ally, but without full annexation. This would allow the U.S. to secure its interests in the Arctic, while Greenland retains its autonomy. However, the world would need to find a delicate balance between military cooperation and the protection of Greenland's sovereignty. Scenario 3. The worst case. A dramatic escalation in the geopolitical struggle results in Greenland's forced acquisition by the U.S., either through military action or coercion. This would send shockwaves through the global order, straining alliances and triggering widespread condemnation. The Arctic would become a flashpoint for global conflict. With the balance of power permanently altered, the future of Greenland and the Arctic depends on the choices we make today. Let's explore the consequences of these decisions and how they will shape the world for generations to come. What kind of future do you want to see for Greenland and the Arctic? How should the world respond to this growing geopolitical tension? Let's dive into the final chapter of this story. The situation in Greenland is more than just a geopolitical dispute. It's a microcosm of the shifting dynamics of global power. It's a battle for resources, for security, and ultimately for control over the future. But the stakes aren't just political, they're deeply human. In this high-stakes game, the question we must all ask is, what kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want a world where the powerful decide the fate of the weak, where the survival of entire communities is determined by military and economic interests? Or do we want a world where sovereignty, diplomacy, and cooperation are the cornerstones of our global future? The future of Greenland and the future of the Arctic hangs in the balance. It's up to us to ensure that the path we choose leads us toward a more peaceful and cooperative world rather than one defined by conflict and division. This story doesn't end here. The world is changing, and the next great challenge is already upon us. Let's continue to explore the forces shaping our future.